industry supporting the war equipment development. And that's what a lot of innovations happened in organization structures, in production technologies to support the war effort, because there was not enough material being produced. The weapons and and the bombs were not getting produced. So a lot of evolution happened at that particular juncture. And as soon as the war ended, because all these factories, all these industries, they suddenly found that there was where to sell to, because the war has ended. There was no demand for this. So even though the way the American economy was funded was through a lot of selling of weaponry to other countries. But a lot of those entrepreneurs who started business at that time, they got into developing consumer products, because as soon as the war ended, all the war heroes came back, and the baby boomers generation happened, and consumerism, which was suppressed till then, suddenly took a huge shape at that particular juncture. So at that juncture, very basic needs were being serviced. So basic, your Coca-Colas, your Hershey's chocolates, and products like this, which were not really focused on during the wartime effort, they were focused on, and they created the consumerism, and therefore the demand for finance and funding for mortgages, the housing, because people wanted to settle down, and agriculture produce, etc. Services started developing, etc. So the primary focus at that juncture was to get resources, because there was so much of demand. The post-war economies in Europe, they were being supported by American economy. So their development, there was a lot of demand. And that created multinationals, because people who were from the US, they went to Europe to sell their products. So resources, as long as resources and capital, that was the primary name of the game at that particular juncture. And then once these companies became huge, and they started looking at it, there was a lot of competition that came into play, because of, and they were reaching saturation point. They said, hey, what do we do now? And let's look at the unfulfilled demands. What is it that consumers had not yet thought about? So let's try to do that, and therefore they started promoting the product through mass awareness campaigns. So branding and advertising, took over from simple product manufacturing. Okay, and we come to date now, and today, things like internet and email, and I have a story, because I launched a personal loan product for GE Capital, and 72 offices this is in 1999, just about 10 years, 11 years back. 72 offices, I had to get data into Chennai, which was a central IT hub. There was no internet. I used to fly disks from 72 offices every day into Chennai to update my database of customers. Okay, so it's not a long time back, and today you can't even live without an email. Okay, so internet has changed, and what it's doing is changing behavior, the way we operate. We stopped writing letters. Earlier, I remember in American Express, I used to write a letter, get it typed, courier it to the US, and I'll wait for 2 weeks before the response will come back to me. 2 weeks in today's environment is unheard of. If you don't hear in the next 5 minutes response to your email, you get worried. So what is happening today is you are changing behavior, the way we react, the way we operate. And therefore, the need for small communities who take that change, quickly enough, who assimilate that change, and therefore they become the perpetrators, or so they make it viral. So that's a change, if you can look at in the environment that has happened. The value matrix, up to the 70s, and if you look at it from the innovators on the x-axis, I've written from innovators, people who create products. The balance shifted towards distributors, because they could access the market, they could access the consumers. And on the vertical axis was ownership of product. So it transferred the ownership. If you sold a product, you sold a car, or you just sold the usage. So you went and stayed in a hotel for a day. So a day the room was there, and then back it went. So there was no ownership of the product. So if you look at it from that perspective, corporatization happened to unlock value in the idea. The idea was the innovator's idea. Yeah. But corporatization, and therefore advent of multinationals who had huge distribution muscle, that happened, and from product to service, continuum it happened. So value controllers were resource-rich banks. You know how it is now with the capital availability because high net worth individuals, strong distribution. Expense control became the name of the game. Efficiency, productivity, JIT, just in time, Kanban, HRM policies. How do we keep our people and how do we incentivize the right productivity effort and all. Control orientation, centralization, hierarchy management. So that was not there earlier. If you read the early details of the corporate history in the US, there was no centralization. Everybody just operated from their own. There was no hierarchies. IT enablement. IT actually helped that centralization process. The value discovery was through research, because the products were established and companies, they were trying to identify newer ways of promoting the value, and therefore multiple variations, different geographies they would do it, and emphasis was on branding over innovation, over new product creation. But today, this is the metrics I have come through, and we'll discuss this a little more, is that from, if you look at it from innovators, it's gone to co-creation networks. It's no individual who creates a product today. You co-create. Nobody owns. All the things about IP ownership, etc. To my mind will go to a toss. It's a old world thinking. Nobody will own a product. It will be co-owned by a group of people, of innovators and networks. And you look at Facebook and Twitter and NGOs who are coming. For example, NGOs was an unheard of concept when I graduated. Nobody wanted to get into charity. For what? Why should I do charity? But today that's the way people get into a business. They start with an NGO. Microfinance started that way and then got into business. A lot of businesses today, networking that happens. We are sitting here, we are pro bono, we are doing this kind of a consulting, sharing with you business model. It was unheard of earlier. So Amazon, eBay, and that's what the community customization to consumer empowerment. That's the y-axis that has happened today. Just 4 implications quickly. One is resource risk, jumping into cash ideas that have found connection with the customers. Behavior change. Flipkart, for example, is a model where they lose in every transaction that they make, but they are trying to change behavior. Isn't it? That's the whole idea. That I buy from Flipkart. All my purchases are book purchases are from Flipkart. I don't walk into a bookshop. Domino's Pizza, even on an online order, they give you a discount. So if you pick up a phone line and call them, you don't get a discount. But if you buy online, you get a discount for the same product. So you're already sold to Domino's. But despite that, they are trying to shift you onto making your own purchase. And then you can design your own pizza. Okay, which is not possible when you order via telephone. This intermediation is, you understand, in any case, new media. Wikipedia, when it first started off, it was a funny concept. But, we almost look at it as authentic information instead of Britannica. Britannica is already gone. They have stopped printing the physical version already. Entertainment, gaming, YouTube, adult sites, you can't stop it. I mean, your kids go onto internet, they can actually go to adult sites. There's nothing for you to, you can't control that part. So that's one of the implications that you have to think about. Co-creation is the second, and information versus inventory. So it's no more physical products whose inventory makes any difference. It's just the information that you have. That has value today. Okay? So experts with corporate management expertise partnering with innovators, PE, private equity, TiE, for example, custom building of products by customers themselves. So Dell, Domino's Pizza, Snap deals. You can order your T-shirts. You can put your picture on the T-shirt and order that. You can put your logo. Create it and give it to them. They will print it and send it back to you. Network production outsourcing. Who had heard? The entire Apple idea is about outsourcing of production. But how do you put it all together? How do you actually market that? That becomes a key driver. P2P business, content generation services. P2P is going to be a huge area because of this co-creation capability. The businesses earlier used to own the co-creation capability. Implication number 3, products to consumers at near cost of production. Components of distribution, brand cost and pricing only marginal. So travel courses, discounted flights and hotels. Amazon, Flipkart, books at discount. Digital books. music. For $1 you can download a song. Who could have thought about a fraction of $1 you can actually download songs. Designing industries, website brochures, ad design. In my time, it used to be very expensive to get these things done. Creatives were, ad agencies were very expensive. Not anymore. You can actually, haggle them down to a fraction of the earlier cost. Consumer research, online media. I used to be managing the business strategy for Visa, 14 countries. We used to physically have research agencies in those 14 countries tracking, brand. Then it got into online research. And sitting in one central place, one person used to manage, 14 countries, research. So there are the cost cutting, consolidators, product comparisons, labor arbitrage, call centers, outsourcing. So it doesn't matter. You're doing call center work for, sitting out of Philippines for a company in the US. So the cost you're paying is of the Philippines. Price bidding, barters, is that going to the next one? That you're not going to be, paying for cost? Maybe. That's one. The last one, data-driven relationships. Analytics, a core part of every business. That's becoming almost, I hadn't heard of analytics when I started my job, but I've done that all my life. But now, every company requires analytics. Facebook, timeline, kind of thing. I have one example, which I can share now, or Subra, if you want, I can share it later if you like. Okay, very quickly, this is what I did in 2003, and just to give you an idea of how the business value gets created, the models used to create in the earlier world, so as to say. You understand debit cards are cards which are linked to savings account or what is called a deposit account, in the West, in the rest of the world. In India, it's called a savings account. So these are cards. Earlier, we used to get what is called an ATM-only card. Okay, you could go to ATM, withdraw cash, and then if you wanted to spend, you could go to the shop, pay the cash, and get it. So the idea was, when I joined Visa, is they said, look, we have a credit card business, which is very profitable, but we want to start a debit card business, which is also should be profitable. But banks don't think it's profitable. So I did research for about 2.5 years, and then this is what happened in 2003. So typical model, revenue model. For a debit card is what is called a float. So if you have money in the account, then that money the bank can lend, and therefore they get what is called a float. So you can do a certain amount of value you can get out of that. Interchange is when you spend on a card at a merchant, then the merchant, if you spend 100 rupees, the merchant doesn't get 100 rupees back from the bank. He gets only 98.5 or 99 rupees. So that 1 rupee can be distributed amongst the Visa and the banks, and issuing and the acquiring bank. So that's called interchange. And the channel migration. So, for example, putting in money cash into an ATM is a lot of expense because there is security, there is a cash out, and the bank is not making any money. But if you, instead of that, if you're spending on the debit card, your money is sitting in the savings account, and through the debit card it's getting routed, then the bank saves a lot of cost expenses. So that is the business case for a debit card. But if the credit cards operate because of the revolving revenue, and that revolving revenue is not here. So the banks are not interested. This is, I'm talking of 2001, 2002. Today, each one of us carries a debit card. Okay, it's not by coincidence that we have that. Okay? Because banks at that juncture were not willing to issue debit cards. They said, we'll only issue, why should we issue debit cards? We'll issue only an ATM card. But if that was a revenue model, typical revenue model, the real life was this. And the only change that I have made here at the top is that your existing customers,